Letters. A fictional exchange of letters between Sylvia Pankhurst and me. Letters, as objects, are time-spatial travel machines and have the power to situate recipient and sender in the same moment-place, despite what they physically are. Letters create an exchange of emotions in a window of mutual care. It is through this open window in time and space that I meet Sylvia Pankhurst and learn from her doing. Sylvia Pankhurst was a British artist and an unflagging activist for social justice. She was, together with her mother and sister, one of the prominent figures of the suffragette movement in Britain. Besides women's rights, she engaged in pacifist and anti-fascist movements and was particularly committed against the Italian occupation of Ethiopia in 1936, when she intensively advocated for the Ethiopian people's right. On 9 May 1936, the same day that Mussolini declared the formation of the Italian Empire from his balcony at Piazza Venezia in Rome, after invading Addis Ababa, Sylvia Pankhurst launched the first issue of her self-run newspaper, New Times and Ethiopia News. The newspaper, in Sylvia Pankhurst's words, was brought out in an hour of crisis to shed light on the Italian atrocities of the Abyssinian War. Besides ending the war and restoring the country to its own people, Sylvia intended to create empathy for the Ethiopians' plight. Sylvia's words, both in her newspaper editorials and the countless letters that she wrote, were spread to politicians, activists, and society at large. She exchanged letters with personalities of her time, such as Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, W.E.B. Du Bois, and James K. Hardy, as well as close friends. Sylvia Pankhurst, as an unknown figure, brought to the world a divergent narrative of the Italian Empire's glory. On the other side, Benito Mussolini's exaltations of the Italian Empire were not only nurtured with words from his balcony, but also by the extensive use of architecture to express Italian power and conquest. A few months after the declaration of empire, in August 1936, Mussolini himself went to Palermo, Sicily, to celebrate the foundation stone of Casa del Mutilato, House of the Mutilate. At the entrance of such a significant piece of architecture in Palermo, a marble stone displayed the completely Mussolini speech of 9 May 1936, his Declaration of Empire. The forms and words of Mussolini are still present today. On the other hand, the anti-fascist words of Sylvia from letters and editorials rest in our archive. My research builds an alliance with Sylvia, looking for tools to fight back fascist ideology normalized by politicians in power in society today. What can I learn from Sylvia Pankhurst's position as an artist in practice? She has positioned herself between two powerful male figures, Benito Mussolini and Haile Selassie, one attacker and his opponent, and she spoke from her place using her tools. She didn't bow to the cynicism and opportunism of neutrality. With a collage of her words, I revive her position and seek inspiration and instruments on how to position myself as an architect and artist. Her anti-fascist activism could not be more indispensable today when our world takes a tortured round towards far-right politics, in particular concern Brazil, where I come from. Letters is an ongoing fictional exchange of letters where I count on Sylvia as an ally and a friend. It investigates her methods of activism and intends to learn from her doing, her strengths, and her courage in dealing with power structures from her position and without fearing to take a stand. As opening someone's letterbox, I will share with you our latest communications. Please come in on our window of care.
October 22nd, 2019. Dear Mrs. Pinto, I was sorry not to see you again before you left England. I'm enclosing herewith a copy of New Times and Ethiopian News, just to give you the latest information. The newspaper was brought out in an hour of crisis. In tendering the tragic collection of record, we would urge readers first to pause and consider what their feelings would have been if this wickedness had been perpetrated in their own land, and they and their dear ones had been victims. Don't think I'm someone extraordinary. I'm just a humble and unofficial person with only one title. I have been fighting for justice my whole life. I don't have counsels for your fights, for our fight against those poisonous snakes, which warmed in the bosom of the democratic states. I would wound them to death. We can't paralyze ourselves on the face of fascism. I am doing something, not only on behalf of Abyssinia, but fundamentally on behalf of us all. I don't know whether it is now possible to save civilization from the supreme disaster which our dictators and statesmen are apparently bent upon heading it for, but the only thing to do is to try. If only the people could be saved from their nationalistic leaders, how easy the rest would be. I desire to express a profound gratitude to have your support and build this alliance in those most needed moments. As regards letters and your fear of them going astray, I suggest getting the most interesting parts typed. Please don't bow over difficulties. I assure you, with a deep sense of responsibility, that we will continue to struggle, with all possible energy, for the annulment of the fascist victories. The situation is exceedingly difficult, but I have faith that the clouds must break. From me will never issue any suggestion of compromise, any mention of hauling down the flag. It is a thing I have never done in my life to any movement. I do hope for your energetic support. Yours sincerely, Sylvia Pankhurst.
February 2020. Dear Mr. Pankhurst, thank you for your letter and your encouraging words. This is indeed a very needed moment, and it is important to form alliances. I hope to capture your bravery, audacity, and eagerness as I continue the fight against fascism, which you so perfectly picture as those poisonous snakes. With despair, I have realized that fascism has never ceased. It has simply been lying down, dormant and discreet, for a few decades. However, now, reactionary forces have gained increasing momentum. Alberto Camus, describing his novel, The Plague Never Dies or Disappears for Good. It lies resting until the day it's raised up again. The snake has been let loose, slithering cheerful and fearless with the same poison of coloniality, now even with sharpened teeth. I was left aghast by your reports and images of what Italy is perpetrating in Ethiopia. The violence of those images becomes even more unbearable when combined with the high words of civilization, humanity, peace, progress, improvement, development that are often used to justify those colonial and imperial ventures. Not to mention the violence of the silence and the false neutrality of those who don't take any stance to stop it. At least you are doing something. The awareness of this side of the history reported in New Times and Ethiopian News is the base ground to continue any conversation on colonial power and fascism. Remembering is a daily task that triggers energy to continue fighting back. Count on me to keep your words and advocacy alive. Every woman owes you thanks. We live in your legacy. Your courage and determination are very inspirational to me. In Brazil, we have moved backwards on the little woman rights that we had. Not only in legislative matters, but in the mixture of Christianity, coloniality, and fascism that is the rule of force now. The current government secretary for women's rights stated in parliament that women must be submissive to men. I need you and your words more than ever. Continue our conversation by retyping your letters gives me hope and enthusiasm. Yours sincerely, Tatiana Pinto.
April 8th, 2020. Dear Mrs. Pinto, I received a card announcing the death of your mom and wish to present my condolences. I regret I should not be able to be present at your mom's funeral on account of illness. Please receive expression of my sympathy. Yours sincerely, Sylvia Pankhurst. October 19th, 2020. Dear Mrs. Pinto, fascism and the emancipation of women are inherently opposed. There is no hope of its changing in this respect. Mussolini had stated, "Women must obey. If I were to give women the votes, people would laugh at me. In a state like ours, they ought not to count." The mission of women is to be beautiful and pleasing. When a code thus contemptuous of women and children is framed by the leaders of church and state, one need not wonder that the licentious conduct of the fascist squads strike terror to the heart of women. My father had bred his 4 children in a sense of destiny, of duty to be servants of the Commonwealth. He used to say, "If you do not grow up to help other people, you will not have been worth the upbringing." My duty is to speak on behalf of justice for us all. I understand that fascism destroys all personal liberty, and it is in fundamental opposition to all form of intellectual and moral progress. I was delighted to see in your letter your concern about Brazil right now. Maria Lacerda de Moura is a teacher in Barbacena who declared herself an anti-clerical, anti-fascist, and fights for the emancipation of women in relation to man and capital. She hopes to be able to meet you. I understand she'll be writing to you. I do hope you'll help me to keep in close touch with what is happening in Brazil. People are all so busy these days that one does not get all the information one desires. Yours sincerely, Sylvia Pankhurst.
The last letter I received from Sylvia a few days ago, and I will write her back soon. Before we close our Zoom window, I would like to invite participants to share their words of encouragement with me. We are locked in our screens due to displeasant circumstances, unable to travel or meet, but our words, ideas, and letters can. They still can travel today, or come from the past, or go from the future. If you would like to share with me a word, please send me a letter. My address, the real physical one, is Blekinge 57. Postcode is 11662, Stockholm, Sweden. And if you like to experience the window of care out of the screen, I offer to send you these letters. Simply share with me your address. Thank you.